Prince George will attend Eton. Just one phrase, released at 12 o'clock. No exclusive interview, no news conference, no well-planned media rollout with amiable reporters who were briefed the night before. Just a straightforward statement that stands alone without any justification, elaboration, or spin. Both his father and his uncle went to the same school. A thread of continuity that has been passed down through this specific family's generations, conveyed in the same subdued, quiet manner that the organization has always conveyed the things that it values most. In a nutshell, music, without formality, as if the meaning were obvious to anyone listening. She was going to pass on her influence to the next generation as people grew disinterested in her and Harry's activities. That was the last card she had to play, Archie and Lil. That announcement came the same week that an article in People magazine, fed by anonymous insiders and timed with obvious intent, revealed that Harry would be attending the Invictus Games while Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet would not be accompanying him. Security concerns are the stated reason. Once more, those two words. The same two words have been used in so many different situations, for so many different events, absences, and choices that they have begun to serve more as a general-purpose response to questions that no one wants to directly address in their own name than as a precise and verifiable explanation. She is untrustworthy. If she can take any word, she might use it, twist it in some manner, or even get paid because she heard something that would be very beneficial for her to discuss, make a movie about, or take action. You can't trust her, in my opinion. Tonight, we'll discuss the differences between those two announcements and what they actually show when compared side by side. The precise and direct statements made by Angela Levin regarding Harry's present mental health and what she alleges has occurred to his relationships with the folks he grew up with. In contrast to the childhood taking place at Windsor, Archie and Lilibet wonder what their upbringing in California was like. And the clock, the one thing that ties everything together. The one that calculates how much time Charles has left with his grandchildren and the window it represents for relationships that can't be recreated from scratch after they've been lost. Let's begin with the Eton announcement, since the handling of it reveals something significant that the content by itself does not. Additionally, the contrast it creates with the Sussex communication style in the same week is more stark than it has ever been. At midday, Kensington Palace issued a single statement. Journalists were not briefed the night before. No context establishing planted stories in welcoming outlets. There was no pre-event background briefing that would have allowed chosen media to present the announcement in a positive light. The news was not accompanied by an exclusive interview with a favorable magazine. There is no explanation of Eton's significance, George's motivation for visiting, or its implications for the monarchy or the family. The message is as simple as Prince George will attend Eton College this September. It stands alone without assistance, without spin, and without any of the tools that contemporary public personalities usually use when they have something they want the world to comprehend in a certain way. As far as the king is concerned, I believe he has now calmed down from his intense desire to meet these kids and Harry since, well, they can't tolerate Meghan, and Harry has acted so horribly. Therefore, if they were to acquire her, they would likely need to have the kids, and I believe it would be too challenging. I believe that it was too difficult for anyone to be friendly. The choice has a great deal of symbolic significance. Both his father and his uncle attended the same school. A line of continuity that runs through this family's generations and the institution's longer history. At midday, it was conveyed in a single sentence. Contrast that with the regular flow of news regarding Archie and Lilibet. People magazine published the tale, which was provided by unnamed insiders. The timing is exactly when the public is paying attention to something else. At a garter ceremony, on a Trooping the Colour balcony appearance, or at a Wales family announcement that would normally take center stage. The content is designed to elicit a particular emotional reaction in a particular audience. The positioning is intentional. The anonymous sourcing is the same for several pieces over several years. These communication philosophies are not the same. They do not even function in the same broad space as neighboring philosophies. The Eton announcement depicts George's education as a private family choice that is disclosed to the public in a succinct and unceremonious manner. Family information, including details about children, is treated as content under the Sussex method. At times of the team's choosing, content will be prepared, scheduled, and released for maximum narrative impact. Music? He asked William if he could assist in raising William's kids since he didn't want any of them to experience the same misery that he experienced. "No, you don't," William replied. "Well, just let me do a bit of it." "No, you keep away. I'm not having you anywhere near them." And I don't hold it against him. In the realm of prominent personalities handling heavy scrutiny, neither strategy is unprecedented. However, no single announcement could accomplish this on its own because of the contrast that was made apparent in the same 7 days. It demonstrates the disparity between the core beliefs of each party towards children. The Eden contrast, the Levin account, the clock, the kids, and the like button all cost nothing and keep this channel operating in this manner. Now, let's talk about Angela Levin's account, since what she has been saying in public about Harry's current circumstances is specific enough and consistently sourced from her long-term direct observation to be taken seriously, while also being pointed enough in its interpretation that I want to be exact about where the documented record ends and her reading of it begins. She has continued to go on and on. He now despises his family because of her. She has convinced him that he has poor mental health. You can, in fact, accomplish that. Someone may try to drown you and make everything terrible in your life. Furthermore, she hasn't made an effort to improve him. Compared to other journalists and biographers now covering the royal family, Levin has arguably spent more time extensively examining Harry. She had access to him when conducting research for her 2018 biography, which allowed her to obtain a thorough grasp of his personality, thoughts, values, and family-related conversations. Since then, she has used this understanding as a benchmark for all subsequent developments. In her perspective, the difference between the Harry she knew during that time and the Harry she saw in the years following Megxit is more than just the normal development of a person whose circumstances altered. It is something more focused and targeted than that. Meghan did not only alter Harry's exterior circumstances, location, lifestyle, and institutional role, according to her precise allegation, which was made without hedging or diplomatic qualification. She altered Harry's perception of those closest to him. He disliked them because of her. That is the straightforward assertion made by someone who is acquainted with the individual before the transformation. Meghan constantly finds a means that she believes she can succeed. Well, and it doesn't matter who died, her father, her former best friends, or her first spouse. Her existence will inevitably involve casualties. When is Harry going to be the casualty? I want to clearly identify this as Angela Levin's viewpoint since it is a particular, pointed, and disputed interpretation of what transpired and why, offered by a person who knew Harry prior to the transformation and has been keeping an eye on it ever since. The Sussex operation would not accept it as an accurate account, and it cannot be independently confirmed from the outside. It is a serious conclusion derived from years of careful study. What I can say is that even though Levin's particular explanation of how the change occurred is her interpretation rather than an established fact, the observable record supports a version of the change she describes. The Harry who, according to several accounts, was genuinely and deeply emotionally connected to his brother and the organization he served, who carried himself with a combination of self-deprecating humor and genuine commitment to the things he cared about, who published Spare, who gave Oprah the interview that he gave, and who hasn't had a real conversation with William in years. He represents a genuine and significant transformation. Something was altered. Levin is responding to the question of what caused the transformation and whether it was formed internally or externally. Several people who knew Harry before Meghan have characterized it in different ways throughout the years. Her response is that it was externally shaped consciously and gradually through a process of seclusion and reframing. Additionally, the Sussex operation most directly challenges this interpretation. I am unable to definitively tell you which reading is accurate. I can tell you that Levin's interpretation is in line with the discernible pattern and that she believes it with the conviction of someone who knew the individual in issue prior to the transformation. To ensure you never miss what we cover next, subscribe to Palace Insider and share your thoughts in the comments section. Do you believe that Harry's transformation was a slow personal development, or does Levin's interpretation of something more purposefully formed align with the pattern you have seen? Levin's further assertion is that Harry is actually afraid of his wife in a way that affects his choices about his kids, his travels, and his connections with his family. It cannot be verified outside. The pattern of results is what can be seen. The divergent schedules, the journey to Invictus Sand's family, the 88 days without a shared photo, the Jordan video, and the manuscript report for Vanity Fair. The question is whether such a trend can be explained by dread or by something else. According to Levin, the observable pattern over the past 12 months is consistent with her interpretation but cannot be solely explained by dread, genuine, practically consequential anxiety that influences decisions concerning children, movements, and family contact. The pattern could be explained by fear, strategic calculation, real alienation, or a mix of the three. How much weight you assign to what Levin claims she saw firsthand will determine the reading you use. Let's now discuss Archie and Lilibet, as this is the section of the narrative with the longest lasting effects and the least capacity to be handled by any PR plan. Archie is 7 years old. Lilibet is 5 years old. In contrast to more intentional or conscious recollections, these are the ages at which memories develop in ways that last into adulthood. Summers, family, music, events, and ordinary, commonplace moments spent in a garden or at the dinner table all contribute to a firm feeling of one's identity and place in the world. These are being formed in Montecito at the moment, in real time. What they have is their parents, each other, the California sunshine, the unique privilege and beauty of Montecito, and a carefully constructed public persona that portrays their family life in cozy tones and purposeful framing in photos that arrive at moments chosen for maximum strategic value rather than just because something happened that was worth sharing. The earthy, unglamorous, essential texture of extended family is something that those who know this family claim they lack. Cousins who make fun of each other, fight, and irritate each other end up serving as a constant reminder of who you are. A grandfather who is able to just be their grandfather without the need for sophisticated coordination, management, and conditions set by those who may or may not be present. According to the most current reports, King Charles, who is 76 years old, is battling a cancer diagnosis that is not in remission. Those aren't rumors from the tabloid. It is a temporal and medical fact. There isn't an endless amount of time for Archie and Lilibet to develop a real-life relationship with their grandfather. Not a controlled photo shoot, not a visit scheduled months in advance with restrictions, but the kind of regular, repeated interaction that allows grandparents and grandchildren to truly get to know one another. It's getting smaller. Additionally, that narrowing cannot be undone by a press release or a calculated interview, in contrast to most aspects of this family saga. Harry has an accuracy and weight that most individuals lack when it comes to this particular type of loss. When his mother passed away, he was 12 years old. He is completely aware of what it's like to run out of time with a parent before the connection has been fully expressed or mended. He understands what it's like to try to have a discussion with someone who is no longer there. There is a clear connection between his own loss as a child and the bond his kids aren't currently developing with their grandfather, a grandfather who, according to several reports, really wants to know them. Anyone familiar with his past can see it clearly, and he most likely sees it in ways he is unable to completely ignore. However, nothing is shifting in a way that would reduce the distance, according to every visible indicator. Summer is almost here. The calendar is jam-packed with appearances and events that don't involve a scheduled family gathering. The children are not present on the Invictus tour. The People magazine article handles their absence without asking anyone to provide an official explanation. And regardless of what a press release says or does not say, the clock keeps running at the only speed it is capable of. Let's now discuss what the royal family's week actually looked like in contrast, as the visual juxtaposition is working on its own here and doesn't need any further explanation. The mob that swarms the mall from Buckingham Palace to the park's margins, the color, the balcony appearance, and the centuries of tradition condensed into a single picture of a family standing on the same balcony where generations of the same family have stood. Charles and Camilla enter St. George's Chapel in full ceremonial regalia during the Garter ceremony at Windsor, a custom that's been followed there since the 14th century. William, who has been quietly working with advisors to modernize the monarchy's ceremonial profile for his own future reign and, according to reliable accounts, finds some of the older ceremonies somewhat disconnected from the present, showed up in full regalia, looking composed and sharp because that is what the role demands at this particular moment. And after witnessing his father conduct the same rituals, he has come to understand exactly what the role demands of its performer. Sophie and Catherine were calmly watching from the sidelines. According to reports, Charles appeared significantly better than he had in the previous few months. It's actually better than doing good for cameras. Then, at noon, the Eton sentence stood by itself, without any accompaniment. By using People magazine insider briefings with anonymous sources to arrange a Warrior Games attendance, the other branch established the narrative in a way that permits it to surface without anybody being held responsible for stating it. This difference, which was apparent over the course of the same 7 days, was expressed more collectively than either statement did alone. The most direct and contentious issue Levin tackles is Meghan's envy. Therefore, I want to proceed with caution and make it apparent that this is the area where I am most clearly in the realm of one observer's interpretation of motivation that no one outside the marriage can confirm. According to her particular interpretation, Meghan's unwillingness to accept Catherine's structural position as Princess of Wales and future Queen, a position that is unassailable and permanent and will never be eclipsed by anything Meghan could accomplish within the organization, was a major factor in the Sussexes' departure. According to Levin's interpretation, Catherine occupied a structural and permanent position as Princess of Wales and future Queen, one whose standing within the organization could not be compromised. Regardless of her own unique traits or accomplishments, Meghan was unable to discover a version of royal life that did not exist in Catherine's institutional shadow. At one point, Harry said that Catherine was the sister he had always wanted he had. That is an actual recorded quotation from an actual interview. Only Harry has first-hand knowledge of what occurred to that particular attitude, the warmth and loyalty it conveyed, when that changed, and what caused the change. It is evident that the sentiment was present and that the relationship it depicted is no longer in any useful form. There is one more particular aspect in Levin's narrative that I would want to discuss directly since it caused a lot of controversy when it first came to light and because it lies at the nexus of the William relationship question and the jealousy question. According to Levin, Harry eventually requested to play a significant part in the upbringing of George, Charlotte, and Louis. According to her version, William's response was a clear no. William's attitude was made clear when Harry pushed once more, "Keep your distance. I do not want you involved." I noted that this was not a verified fact that could be independently verified, but rather Levin's narrative based on years of attentive observation rather than a single conversation or document. However, if accurate, music and the observable data regarding the status of the relationship between William and Harry are in line with the conclusion it suggests, it provides precise information about where William's evaluation of Harry had come from by this time. Not a momentary detachment that could be resumed once feelings had subsided. There was no diplomatic pause while both parties observed the course of events. A definite and purposeful rejection based on an established conclusion about trust that didn't need more proof to be upheld. It is in line with what else Levin says about William's current situation. Additionally, it is in line with everything that can be seen regarding the two brothers' relationship during the time after Spare was released. The lack of any documented combined presence or contact, the silence, the distinct public tracks, and music. According to Levin, the exodus was ultimately more motivated by the Catherine dynamic than by the narratives of institutional racism or media coverage. It is an interpretation rather than a verifiable assertion. What I can tell is that it is an interpretation that many individuals who were present at the institution at the time have independently voiced in one way or another. One of the more recurring themes in the testimonies of those who watched both of them during the transition years is the particular observation that Harry was clearly and genuinely changed in his relationship with Catherine, a relationship he once described with the unique warmth of someone who had found the sibling connection he had always desired. I am unable to respond to the question of whether Levin's particular formulation of the reason is accurate. It's undeniable that something important shifted in that connection. This is where it all comes in, And I want to be open about what I am doing when I combine various threads into a single image, because I believe that being transparent about the interpretative process is more beneficial than giving the impression that a decision was reached without one. The observable facts. At midday, George declared in a single line that he was off to Eton. The absence of the children on the Invictus trip is explained by security concerns, which have evolved into a general-purpose response to numerous queries. There isn't a scheduled family meeting for the summer, and Charles is dealing with cancer that isn't in remission. Over the course of 7 days, the Garter Week offered the most striking visual difference between the two branches of the family: Trooping, Garter, Eton, and a People magazine piece. Regarding Harry's psychological condition, the process by which his relationship with his family changed, and Meghan's particular involvement in influencing both the change and the present limitations on what Harry can and cannot do about it, Levin has made explicit and precise statements. According to the interpretive layer I'm using, these data taken as a whole depict a scenario where several windows are simultaneously closing. The window that allows Archie and Lilibet to develop a sincere bond with the family they were born into but are being raised apart from. The window that allows Charles to get to know his grandkids. And the window that allows Harry to make amends with his father before his health condition changes. And that the decisions made on a daily basis, the announcements made at lunchtime, the tales in People magazine, the journeys taken by Invictus alone, and the summers without confirmed visits are all deciding whether or not those windows will be exploited before they close. The most difficult aspect of this story, which I believe is overlooked in the discussion about PR tactics, communication techniques, and institutional contrast, is that none of the decisions that led to the children's predicament were made by them. Archie is 7 years old. Lilibet is 5 years old. They take in the version of reality that is presented to them. On the basis of the foundation they are given, individuals construct their identities. Additionally, their perception of their family is shaped by what they are shown rather than by their own observations. And later, when they are old enough to look for the record, read what was written, watch what was broadcast, and draw their own conclusions about the adults who made the choices that influenced their early years. That moment of reckoning has not yet arrived. However, it is on its way. Furthermore, the specific clock cannot be controlled, in contrast to news cycles, PR tactics, or controlled announcements at noon. How would you honestly describe it? Before time renders the question moot, is there still a version of circumstances in which Archie and Lilibet develop a meaningful relationship with their grandfather? Is there still a window that someone may choose to use? Or is the distance now structural and self-reinforcing? How do you feel about Levin's description of Harry's circumstances? Does the evidence lead in a different direction? Or does the observable pattern suit the picture she is describing? Please share your honest thoughts in the comment section below. To ensure you never miss what we cover next, subscribe to Palace Insider. This channel is sustained via the like button. I'll see you at the next one. Additionally, the next episode of this tale is constantly developing.